We'll call the Board of Works meeting to order. We have a lot on the agenda and not as much on the council agenda, but a lot on the Board of Works agenda.
What's new?
What's new? What else could we have roll call for the Board of Works?
Craig Koshaw,
Here.
Bill Carbaugh,
Here.
and Ken Meyer.
Yes, ma'am. You were emailed a copy of the minutes from our September 19th meeting. Do you have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second. Motion from Bill, second from Craig. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The first thing up on the agenda would be salt bids for 2018, and need to first make a matter of record that Phyllis has advertised it as a legal notice.
I saw it in the paper, so, yeah.
Make that a motion for a matter of record?
Yep, so, yeah.
Craig? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, the same. Thank you, Phyllis. And now Phyllis has...
All the bids.
Now, where's our nifty opener? Here it is.
So, these are
Yep.
all.
Yep. We'll let the Honorable Mr. Baker do the honors.
Okay.
Jeremy, is this street in water both, or? Both, okay.
They usually identify one or the other or both.
Correct.
Just do it there.
I was going to say, I thought you had it there.
They had the date.
First bid to be open is from RBS Inc. First bid to be open is from RBS Inc. Out of Terre Haute, Indiana. It's for water conditioning salt. Form 96 is submitted, properly signed. Bid bond in the amount of 10% of the bid is submitted. The bid for 3,000 tons of rock salt is at $115.65 a ton, totaling $346,950.
115 what per ton?
$115.65 per ton,
Thank you.
or a total of $346,950 for 3,000 tons.
Where are our salt prices right now, Jeremy?
I have it. It's $115.89. It's what they did last, or what we're paying right now.
115.
Very similar.
I don't think you're seeing a big fluctuation this year.
Like we have in some years.
Okay, the next bid to be opened is submitted by Cargill out of North Olmsted, Ohio. Again, this is a bid for street salt. Try to find the signature page here. There we go. Form 96 is submitted, properly signed. Cashier's check in the amount of $1,600 is submitted. The bid is $12,504, $12,504. That's for 200 tons of street salt. Third bid submitted is submitted by Detroit Salt Company out of Detroit, Michigan. It is properly signed. Cashier's check in the amount of $1,330.80 is submitted. The bid, $66.54 per ton, 66.54.
What kind of salt is this, Tim?
This is street salt.
This is street salt.
Street salt, okay.
Gram feed or RBF was for softening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Higher.
The next bid open is submitted by Compass Minerals America Inc. out of Overland Park, Kansas.
Well, that's a good one.
Form 96 is submitted and properly signed. Cashier's check in the amount of $1,300 is submitted. The bid is $63.60 per ton, totaling for 200 tons, $12,720.
I have a paper clip for that one.
The next bid open is submitted by Morton Salt, Inc., out of Chicago, Illinois. Form 96 is submitted and properly signed. Cashier's check in the amount of
Why so much, I noticed.
$43,520. Not sure why that.
Maybe they're bidding on the,
It may be on both.
yeah.
Yeah, Morton could be bidding.
Or
on both.
so.
They may have combined the bid bond.
Right.
The bid is, this is for Morton Bulk Safe Tea Salt for 200 tons, so I'm assuming this is road salt. $59.29 a ton, totaling $11,858.
And then there's, yep, we got both of them.
Then, there's also rock salt submitted. Form 96 is properly signed. And the price on the rock salt for softener is $141.11, or $423,330 for 3,000 tons.
They're low on the street. Morton's cheap on the street.
I don't know what carpet.
So looks like Graham Feed is the least expensive on the water softener salt at $115.65 a ton, and Morton is the cheapest on street salt at $59.29 a ton. And
There's really no need to review it as long as...
Really? You don't need,
You found you make sure that the bids are complete all...
so we don't need to take it under advisement?
The only
Salt.
thing I want to ask you, Tim, is if we're required to do a certified check and they actually put a cashier's check in, are we going to still accept the bid if it's below bid? If it's below bid, that was the last one, correct? Is that a cashier's check or a certified check?
Doesn't say,
Oh, it doesn't, so it's probably a certified check then. I don't know. It's certified.
That's not a cashier's check, I don't think I never seen.
I'm not sure. I think you gotta do that.
do you need to act on it right away? let's take it under advisement, I'll take a look at it, but I don't think there's an issue there. I think we can accept
Do
it.
you want to,
Yeah, I'd say, make a motion to take it under advisement, and we'll take a
and,
look at it.
and bring it back up next meeting or later today?
No, next meeting.
Whatever he wants.
Have a decision on January anyhow.
Yeah.
Next
Okay.
meeting.
I just want to look at it.
I'll second it, yeah.
Okay, I got a motion and a second to take it under advisement, all the salt bids. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you. Phyllis, next I have up here approval for pay application to Fleming for the sewer interceptor project. If you want to kind of walk us
Yeah.
through that.
Bill Slyke called me today, and he wants me to bring this to the board. He said he's been working through the review of the final quantities and status of the project, and he would recommend that the city approve the release of $99,262.14 of the current held retainage funds for the work completed for Fleming on the sewer project. This leaves approximately $46,653.03 left in plus earned interest and held in retainage. So he's requesting this to be paid, and he also wanted to tell you that Fleming's total project totaled $2.8 million, and his was $2.7. There's a difference of $35,000, which was additional piping that Fleming had in there. So that's additional savings added to the previous meeting. He talked about the savings, so.
Okay. So
So,
the bill that we would want to pay Fleming is for $99,262.14, right?
99,262.14, yes.
And if there's no objections, I'd look for a motion.
Make a motion to pay the bill. Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same, thank you.
And then he says, I have reviewed most of the quantities, but I have about 6 items I will need to review with Greg prior to the next meeting on the 17th to complete the final quantities, change order, and final pay application, and final retainage release.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep, thank you. Don? Don has a report on the Country Brook location lift station.
Yeah, the Country Brook lift station, which is on Eastbrook, up on the east side of town.
It's on East Brook, it's the Country Brook addition, not the Country Brook Apartments. Okay.
Well, it's the housing district roughly in Belmont.
Right, yep.
So, it was built in the 70s is what I was told. It is malfunctioning, wearing out, rusting out. What I'm proposing, after talking with Verlin, is moving it across the street into the park strip area we have. And getting it, it's right now it sits in the guy's front yard. We would,
Is this when you turn right off, when you turn off Pickle Road into the subdivision?
make that first little curve, it's right there on your right.
Yep.
Basically, the old lift station would become a pass-through manhole, gravity over to the new one, then force main it back. We would be, the way we're hoping to do it is there would be no bypass pumping or anything. Brett Miller down in Monroe gave us a price of $5,000 to design it and get all the state stuff if we want to go that route. Fleming's working on a budget for me. That's coming down the pike pretty quick. That's a temporary fix that you see, and it's still spraying water.
And,
It looks like a maintenance item, doesn't it, Don?
The pipes are
I mean,
rotting.
yeah, it looks like be considered maintenance for that.
so I was gonna say, where do we take this from? Is it,
Well, I would say, since you can look at it two ways. Maintenance, if we rebuild it right where it sits, it's probably a little more than that if we move it across the street. I would
Across the
still
street.
like to move it across the street and bypass all the,
come from the utilities? Is that?
yeah, it would be sewer.
Sure you-
Budget.
And?
It needs moved too because it's in kind of a stormwater pathway. When we get heavy
Yeah.
rain, it runs right over the top of that.
We would basically lower the existing lift station when we were done with it, lower the lid, put just a manhole grate on top of it and bury it, you know.
But that homeowner,
He would love us if we did that.
now what's across the street?
Access to the park back there.
Okay.
So somewhere, I gotta get some surveying done to see where that property line falls, but I'd like to put it along that drive,
Where our park is.
where our park is, city-owned
Right.
property.
Right.
Worst case scenario, we'd have to run it further back, but we can do that too.
Right.
Put it further behind them houses in that park area.
Yeah.
So
What do you need, motion?
I just wanted you guys aware of.
You're just making a report that you're going to pursue
I'm
looking
gonna
into
pursue getting prices,
the cost
if
for
that's all right
for
with you guys. And
Sounds good to me.
come up with
needs to
a
be
design.
done.
Yeah, that would be a bad mess.
Size-wise, it's fine. It keeps up with what's there, so we don't need to, we probably will bump it up a half horse per pump. I think they're 2 horse now and 2.5 is kind of the standard, so we bump it up a little bit, but some more homes going to be added to that system, so. But I just wanted you guys aware it is a problem child,
Okay?
so.
Thank you, Don. Bill, I always save code enforcement issues until the last, and tonight I'm going to go ahead and say, Bill, you got anything you want to report on code enforcement? Well, we have plenty of time.
I gave Tim a couple items,
Yeah, I'm familiar with them.
but as far as reporting, I would maybe like to address the council that
Put your mic down some, Bill. You want to talk about it in the council meeting, or? you just
No,
want-
I think just kind of give them a heads up. What I'd like to see us do as a city is take create an ordinance that if a home gets cited for junk, trash, and debris more than twice, that they would get an automatic fine of some sort. I truthfully, as Roger Gage would say, some of these people are just like Christmas cards every year. And I've got one home up on 3rd Street that I cite them, and then 2 months later, they're back in the same shape. That's just an idea I have. I don't know what everybody thinks about it, but I think if they know that on their paperwork, that if the 3rd offense, they...
Any time frame attached to this, or just as long as they're the resident, and if one's this year, one's next year, and the 3rd one's the year after, they get fined in that 3rd year?
I'd like to see us do that, because truthfully, it gets to be a little tiresome, and I just gave Tim one that I've had trouble with for probably 4 or 5 years. And every time I send them code violations, they do clean up, and they do cooperate, but they fall right back into the same pattern. And Christ, the perfect example is my buddy down there on Jerk Street, that when he was at the Board of Works meeting the last time, he promised that he wasn't going to go salvage trash at our heavy trash pickup.
It's just too tempting, wasn't it?
I think it was. Yeah. And he loaded his backyard up again, just the same way he does every year, so.
Well, right now, we have codes, and you'll go around and you give people notices and give them, time frame to repair, but then beyond that, we don't have the enforcement side of it to where we can really do anything.
Well, unless they don't cooperate. Then Tim has helped us, and the council helped us last year just by saying, well, let Tim write them a letter.
So this would kind of be like a repeat offender ordinance of code enforcements.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. Council members got any favor or?
You see the pattern, and it's a continued problem, same people. You need to give it a teeth.
Well, basically, I think they the ones that don't cooperate, we've kind of taken care of them, and it's really worked out well. Tim sends them a letter, and it really gets their attention. But the ones that know, hey, I'll clean up, and he'll come back, and he'll give me a clean bill of health, and then later here I go again. I mean, and a lot of the times it's rental properties that the landlord, is not aware of how their tenants are living, and some of these people, I don't know where they come from, but I've got pictures I just gave Tim that are just atrocious for just...
He brings us pictures, they're pretty compelling.
They sure are.
Like we're being overly picky, these places are bad looking.
Yeah, they have no pride. They don't. And you know what I really feel sorry for, and I guess that's my big motivator. I feel sorry for the neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think they should have to live next to people that don't care.
I put in a code enforcement here recently in the computer system. The neighbors say the guy's mowed once this year, and he mows around the mower that doesn't work in the yard. It's just, I wouldn't run one next to him.
Well, I cited them, and I hope they didn't find anything in the yard when they mowed, and they did mow, so... I don't know,
Bill has a lot of, he could write a book. One family, he went down and told them to get their yard mowed, and they obliged. They mowed it, and got the weed whacker out, and they weed whacked. They got done weed whacking, they slid the weed whacker down. It's been laying there for about a month and a half now, right there in the yard.
Right where they were got done. It's funny. The gas cans there and everything.
Just laying right there in the yard. Clean it up.
Well, they need, again, they know where it's at.
Yeah.
They don't have to look in the garage, which the garage is probably full.
Well, they probably don't have a room in the garage. I see it all the time. Okay. Tim, you got any comments on that? I mean, is that doable?
Sure. I mean, I can prepare something, you guys can review it and see if that's what you want.
All right. Thank you, Bill. You got anything else for now?
No, I don't.
Cool.
Everything's been pretty much taken care of, and Tim has helped me out a lot, so.
Bill, can I ask, like you gave us a stack of different homes, like there were several of them on Schermeyer Street recently, abandoned, basically. Are we doing the next step on some of these?
Truthfully, with all the complaints I've had, and with vehicles, citing vehicles, I kind of let this item kind of stretch out till it's no longer golf cart weather. I mean, it's later. And I've got about 5 homes that I'm going to take pictures of, and where I think we're going to prepare that we let these homeowners, and these are abandoned homes, these are homes that's not being lived in, let the homeowners know that they need to address these and do something about them. And I've got information, the mayor went ahead and got information from different cities, from Peru, Huntington, the way they handle it, and it's pretty much all goes back to the homeowner, and they have to either fix them up, or at a certain point we can start condemnation procedures, and so.
I was a bit skeptical when the fellow from Florida was here with the trailer park, but he really has cleaned it up some, moved them, that front area is clear. He said he's going to move them back. I've driven through there, but just from the highway, it is better, a lot better than it was.
It looks better from the highway, and I think that was our main thing we wanted to do. But Jamie the other day told us that there's some sewage problems out there that need to be addressed, and I thought, and the mayor sent him a letter and said we'd like to have him come back and revisit the subject.
Good.
And I thought at that point maybe Craig and myself could go out there and kind of get some ideas again. There's about 3 trailers that I've spotted that he said in his letter that he would clean them out of all the trash and rubbish in them, and he hasn't done that. There's trailers out there sitting with junk and tires and stuff in them, so.
I corresponded with, what's his name?
Coos.
Coos. Coos.
Coos or Coos,
Yeah. I sent him and the attorney both an email, complimented them on what they've got done, and invited him. I said, the next time you're in the Decatur area and know you're going to be here, let me know. I'd like you to come back and give us a report. And he said I'd be glad to, and he said, thanks for taking notice of what I have got done. He knows he still has some things to do, but at least he's working on it, you know.
It was kind of funny. I came in one day, and I went out there in a week before and took pictures of some of the trailers that I thought needed to be addressed. And there was a couple guys out there with a dump truck and that are working on the area, and they saw me taking pictures, I think. And I came in, and I think the next week those trailers that I took pictures of were gone. And I came in and told the mayor, I said, hey, I'm not going to take any credit for this because I really didn't talk to anybody, didn't do anything. But the trailers that I showed you pictures of that I took, they're gone. And so I don't know. And I thought some of them that had extensions on them or whatever, some of them they actually tore apart. But then we found out later that some of them they just moved back to the center of the park and put this fancy skirting on it. And I think they're
Not so fancy. I wouldn't use the word fancy.
Yeah.
Not so fancy.
I was being a little facetious there. They put skirting on them, and actually I think are trying to fix them up and clean them up so they can rent them. And to hear this guy, this Coos talk, he kind of wants to help the people out. I mean, that's his goal. So sometimes I think he's not helping them out, but.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. This is just for the record, I guess. I want to make it known to everyone. I think I've told some of you that Phyllis received a letter from Adam Miller, and Ed Gage has decided to appeal our decision of disannexation. And to do that, I guess the next step is to basically have a trial.
Another Board of Works?
No. This goes to either Circuit or Superior Court. Phyllis is going to have to do a transcription of both the public hearing as well as the meeting where the decision was made. Most likely, we're going to have to hire a court reporter to do that. I told Phyllis I would check to see if by chance the recorded video version would be sufficient, but normally it is not. Normally you have to transcribe the proceedings, and that gets filed with the court, and then it's literally a trial before a judge. So,
What court?
I don't know.
We don't know
It's
what
not been
court,
filed
we don't
yet. One thing that
Unanswered questions.
Do you represent the city then?
somebody's going to have to, myself or somebody in our firm, yeah.
If
You and
you were
Craig?
to not win that trial, we have to pay you or somebody.
You're going to have to pay. You're going to have to pay no matter what.
So is there any recuperation of that?
Yeah.
There's a surety bond that he has to post. The statute is horrible. It has literally no direction in terms of the process, or other than very vague reference to the fact that we have to have a public hearing, we have to make an order, he has a right to appeal it to a court. And if he does, then we have to do a transcript, and he has to post a surety bond. Doesn't say what that amount is. In fact, Phyllis's letter from Adam says that the statute says we're to determine what that should be. So I'm trying to figure out what it should be, and then we'll let Adam know, because he probably needs to know that in order to file the suit.
So basically, we need to take the amount of money that we think it's going to cost us to do the transcript and go through all this battle.
I think that's what it says. If we win, then the surety bond
Covers our back.
goes towards those expenses, I believe. But like I said, the way the statute is worded, it's not very clear. So I'm trying to find out a little bit more information. We'll go from there.
Can we have a paralegal write the transcript?
It's a word-for-word transcript. So you're talking a court reporter to do it.
Huh.
Well, the entire meeting, or just the segment that was pertaining to
The public hearing, the entire public hearing, and then that portion of the public meeting where the decision
Okay.
was made.
Well, that wasn't that long.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, we probably need to get an estimate on how much that's going to be. Do you have somebody that you can...
I can contact some court reporters, but,
Still a lot of words.
I can't believe that
So much
in
work.
this modern day, I can't believe they couldn't take a recording. I mean, why do we record these meetings?
I guess for the benefit of the public. I
Yeah.
guess.
You
It
haven't
is.
found that out yet, though, Tim?
I haven't.
Okay.
So,
We might still be.
He'll let us know.
That would be cool.
And court reporters go away.
Yeah.
Job security.
We would have to provide transcripts, we can't get video or...
That's what he's saying, yeah. Transcript.
doesn't allow any flexibility under the statute, it just says a transcript. So that means something put in writing.
Has this happened before, Tim? That you can...
I've never been involved in one, I've never
No,
been involved.
I mean, within the
Oh, within the
city,
state?
within the state, within the city.
There are a couple of, there aren't many cases that have gone up on appeal, but there are some cases. The two that I cited in the course of the decision that was made, one talks, and both of them are really more so where it was an involuntary annexation. The city promised to do certain improvements,
Yeah.
it wasn't done, and eventually one or more of the property owners filed to disannex because the city hadn't kept their end of the bargain. And so there are two cases that I found. One was that the burden is on the party that's asking for disannexation to show a compelling reason why the disannexation should be allowed. The second case dealt with an issue that revolved around whether the request for disannexation was timely filed. And, you know, in both instances with Mr. Gage, he didn't fit either one of those cases. So,
Timely filed was definitely out of his
well,
realm.
that was the finding or the conclusion that was drawn by the Board of Works, but now the court is now bound by the Board of Works decision. The court on its own will determine whether or not it finds the same way or finds differently.
How about new information that we've found?
I think additional information, from what I understand, it's a trial de novo, so I think the court will consider any evidence that's been presented, but I think additional evidence can be presented.
Can be?
I believe so,
And we do have a little more.
yeah.
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 So,
Yeah.
and there may be some other people that I want to talk to that were involved in the process back at the time when this was all done, because there are a couple of individuals that I think might be able to shed some additional light. So I'll talk to them.
If there's a situation where a farm that he's wanting to disannex is actually putting water into the city's...
Well, that issue was raised by Don at the time of the public hearing.
and it's been doing that for 20 to 30 years, wouldn't you think that could be part of the surety?
No, I don't think so. The surety goes directly to the cost of the trial.
Okay.
None of any repairs, huh?
I don't-
Well, I'm thinking, you know, I look how large that farm is,
Mhm.
about half of it is going towards the city and has been for years. We've been maintaining that pipe to drain his farm, so I mean, I'm just thinking if there's a way we could possibly, you know, tie that in, I think it'd be a good idea.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Jeremy's just been so busy this year, he's used up all his stone, all his gravel. And he wants to crush more, but that's,
That is really a good way to go, though.
yep.
We have ground around 5,300 ton this year,
Wow.
about midsummer, and to make it throughout the winter. And into the spring, we're needing to grind again. We budgeted enough monies for this year, which I need to, as long as you guys are okay with it, I would just transfer some money around in my accounts to make everything balance out and grind again.
How's your concrete pile? Is it getting pretty stinking?
It's huge.
It's gotta be.
It's huge. But we've had a lot of projects.
Yeah.
Are they holding the same price as what you had before?
They're supposed to get me a number by Friday. So it seems like they're gonna hold the same price that they did earlier this year.
How much was it?
They want to see what the cost is. The low number was $5, almost $6 a ton.
That's 1/3 of the cost
That's
of virgin material, guys, right now.
You know, you're looking $10, $11 just to buy the stone if you had to go to a quarry plus truck it.
And then you gotta haul it.
And then you would still have to dispose that big pile in our shop, so we're
Yes.
far better off doing what we're doing. So,
They bring in a magnet too and pull the rebar and the, okay. That's a good plan.
So if-
basically, it's a supply issue that we're having. I'm just bringing it before you, this board, because it's just following the purchasing limits. You're probably looking around $30,000 to get a grinding.
Get you about close to 6,000 ton.
Yep, we normally split some of the cost with the utilities, because water department uses the vast majority of the stone.
I heard you right, sorry, $30,000 versus $90,000 if we bought it.
Roughly to
No brainer.
to have to pay to get rid of it plus purchase the stone. So, and it's recycled.
Yep.
So,
And we're about recycling.
Yes, we are.
kind of want to make you guys aware of it before I went any further. As long as you don't have any issues with it, I'll keep you informed as we go.
I'm all in. You in?
Plus, yeah, that's great. Plus, you're accepting concrete from other people that want to bring concrete in.
We're just doing so much, we've done so much this year with water main replacements and all the utility stuff, Madison Street,
Master Drive.
and everything else. And we, you know, it's amazing how quick that pile gets away. So, thank you much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jeremy. Also, then, I want to make a matter of record this evening, unless you can back me up on this. Taylor Gage started a year ago, October 1st, so I want to make it a matter of record that Taylor will be taken off his one-year probationary period. Motion for that?
Motion.
Yeah, two motions in 1 second.
Did you have any conditions you wanted to?
Well, do you have recommendations, Les?
Come here, we'll discuss that.
Oh, yeah, I did, yeah.
Did you bring his file?
I'm a little slow.
Did you bring his file on? How's he doing? How's his reviews going, Les?
He's just fit right in.
I'll do it.
He's able to work alone, you know, respond certain things and makes good decisions out in the field when he responds certain things. That, you know, he's just doing a bang up job. They both are. They really are. Bang up job, no pun intended. Yeah, he's doing a good job.
Unless, if you want to write a little something up for Phyllis's records, that would be good. Okay, that's that.
Can't believe it's a year already.
Yeah, it seems like a blink of an eye.
Yep. I think it was the last meeting, I asked for permission to speak with the Logan brothers about that building down here in the corner on the alley. And I've spoke to them, and I've got them down in price somewhat. Since then, we were just kind of brainstorming, and we thought of, well, first of all, it's probably, they're going to not come down lower than what the appraised value is. So the Community Foundation wants to make a donation to the plaza with something physically tangible that they can put there. So I emailed Connie, Mayor, and suggested that the foundation this is their 25th year, so they want to put $25,000 into the plaza. But they want it to be something they can be recognized for. So I suggested that they put $25,000 toward that building, and we could name it after the plaza as a Adams County Community Foundation Rest Plaza or whatever. And their board met Wednesday night and voted no. They said, while we need restrooms at the plaza, that's not what they were looking for as far as a wow factor. So we've also talked to them about some lighting that would be across the entrances, but to do that, the lighting would have to be so high for a fire truck to get in there if it ever needed to, that we didn't think that that would look right.
About the sound system.
Well,
Let's take the bathrooms on ourselves and give them the sound system.
I mentioned the sound system to Connie in an email back, and she said she would run it by the board, you know, but I got a feeling that that's going to be the same thing. It's not something, they want everybody to be able to see what it is that they did. And, oh yeah, they'd hear it. So, anyhow, if anyone has any suggestions short of commissioning a sculpture in there, that might be what we have to end up settling on, I don't know.
Connie and someone who's on their board.
Yep.
You need to talk to. So what do you guys think?
Well, in all honesty,
Work together.
I lobbied to several of our board members about the building. And everyone I lobbied to had to recuse themselves from voting because it's in their bylaws that if anybody lobbies for anything.
Oh.
Yeah. So we really can't try to influence them in what they do. Melissa, you got any comments?
We have offered to present some ideas to their board and been denied of speaking directly to their board of directors. We have been advised to go through Connie, and we've entertained a lot of their ideas and haven't been able to quite find the right fit.
Well, another thing they wanted to do was, what do you call it, like a archway across the entrance, metal archway?
Across the entrance, and again, because of the size and span of an archway, the starting point is $50,000, and that's at one end. And we're very grateful that they're interested in investing in the plaza. I think we hate to have them spend money on something that's not so necessary, especially when we know the budget situation that we're in with the plaza. It's a hard place to figure out.
You know, we were told that it would take $50,000 to put that archway across the entrance, but we were told that by Kevin McCrory and his team. I wonder if that's something we could check into and...
Gilpin?
Yeah.
Ironworks?
Kurt, Jeremy, you guys got any idea if that's something that could be... I mean, that seems like a lot of money just for a...
And it's one of the things that I think if we wanted to do that decision will have to be made very soon because of the cement and the major support that would need to go in for something like that. And I
Right above your water lines.
That's a hard sell.
You'd have to have a footer in there prior to doing the wall. Maybe then you're gonna have...
Enough time for that. Yep.
Right.
Would they be attached to the buildings?
I don't know if we want to get into that.
We were in it.
You walk and start to fly. I'm looking at on that one building, I don't think you want to attach it.
Right. Wires pulling light poles over, I don't think we want to touch any building.
Oh, yeah. Like
I
the
was
sound
up
system's
at
21.
South Haven, Michigan.
You know, maybe they want to
That's
take
why
on
we-
the
that's why
influence
we're
of our county
but I don't think
instead of
we're-
Massachusetts. Maybe they don't want to do what we want to do, maybe, go invest in the northern entrance of the community. The county.
I don't know. Hey, Melissa?
County Foundation. They had their whole area. We had to jump in covered with $800,000 ticket. And when I was up there that day, they had a farm with
Excuse me. Phyllis just said that, you know, is there something right in the plaza itself, any of the, a section of the, what do you call them, bricks? Or something that,
they could just put towards that.
They are interested in an element of the plaza that they can prominently
display.
put their name on that recognizes their donation.
Well, the
And
brick
there's not a lot in the plaza that makes sense to put a plaque on. We've got benches sponsored and shoes sponsored by donors, and we originally talked about having people buy the bricks, and there's like 20,000 bricks or something ridiculous, and if we put somebody's name on 10 of those or even 100 of those,
They get
it's
lost.
going to have a look that looks unfinished or not so hot.
Got a comment, Mary?
What about the tent? They put their name on the tent, I don't know, I think we were thinking about,
Craig
I
Glass?
talked to him about it.
And Craig, weren't we kind of talking about not being in the tent business ourselves and rather just leasing them as need be? That's kind of what we talked last time, wasn't it? Aside from the ones we already have?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and again, I think that's not going to be a permanent, if they weren't, I mean, once on the tent,
it's only out there when there's...
or if it's not up for every event, or it's not a permanent piece of the flag.
And in her last correspondence with me, she said, you know, if we just can't get anything, then there'll be a 30th anniversary in 5 years, and maybe we can do it then, so...
Donate a ball field.
Yeah, they could. That's not right beside the foundation. We're not going to have a ball field.
Yeah, the building has on it, they don't, I don't know. It's too bad.
Yeah, it is.
Future projects they can donate to.
I think they want this because it's right there by the foundation building, is the idea of it.
Wow.
Um,
Not that interested in it. Sculptures all over the place.
That's that. I have a couple of announcements to make. We recently have had 2 police officers leave our employment, and if I could read their resignation letter. The first one is dated September 25th, and it's from Joel Lenrick, who is a patrolman with the city. After 9 years of dedicated service for the city of Decatur and the Decatur City Police Department, I am formally giving my written notice to resign my position as police officer effective Thursday, September 28th, 2017. The other one is from a Decatur Police Sergeant and Canine Officer, Shay Beaver. I'm writing to formally notify you of my resignation from my position at the Decatur Police Department effective Sunday, October 1st, 2017. I was recently offered a new opportunity with the Fort Wayne Police Department. My years at the Decatur Police Department have been some of the best of my life. I will miss the incredible people I have had the pleasure of working with throughout the years. I thank you for the opportunities you provided me during my time with Decatur Police Department. I appreciate your support and understanding, and I wish you all the very best. Sincerely, Shay Beaver. Both of them went to work for Fort Wayne on lateral transfers. Both of them 9 years. We lost 2 really good officers with those 2, one, with Shay being a sergeant and also a canine officer. So the Board of Works will be interviewing in an executive session Thursday evening the 5 candidates eligible for a promotion to sergeant, and then a decision we hope to make following that in a special session, 2 separate meetings. So if I could make these 2 both a matter of record.
So, yep, second.
Craig motion, Bill second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Then the second one is another even bigger notice I want to make mention here. It says, to the Honorable Mayor Ken Meyer, member of the Board of Works and Safety, and members of Decatur City Council. It has been my pleasure and honor to have grown up and made my life in the city of Decatur. I'm so proud and fortunate to have had the opportunity to choose a profession in which my life has been so enriched. I've worked under and with the finest officers and civilian personnel I've ever known. The city is fortunate to have such dedicated and caring people. And so, I would like to take this opportunity to make official notice of my intentions to retire from the Decatur Police Department after 35 years in law enforcement. My last day of work will be January 1st, 2018, with January 2nd, 2018 being my first day of retirement. I would like to thank all of you for the support and trust you placed in me, and I'm looking forward to enjoying retirement. Thank you again for the many opportunities that were made available to me as an employee of the City of Decatur and the Decatur Police Department. Sincerely, Greg Cook, Chief of Police. And with that, I want to make mention that I want to make this public, so I'm going to read this again at the council meeting so that the media can make mention of it. And Greg's last day will be really at the end of the year. He's going to work one full, he'll be employed with us one day in January, but we'll formally recognize Greg then at he says, at the last meeting in December. It gives us an excuse to maybe have some cookies or something, so, Greg, on behalf of the whole administration, thank you so much for 35 full years. January 1st was his hiring date, so January 1st will have 35 years in with the city police department, all those years. It's a long time. Real experience. Yep.
You've made my job a lot easier, Chief. What little job I have.
Have I talked about the Redmond's Lodge down on Winchester Street to all of you or not? I can't recall.
I do.
At the last meeting I did.
No. I say you did, but maybe you start talking about it.
Yeah. No. Okay,
The Redmond Lodge.
Okay, the house that's across the street from the Boys and Girls Club, and it's just to the north of Arnold Lumber. You got Arnold Lumber, then you got our walking trail where it connects, and then this house. And if you go back into the 1980s, actually, I got the paperwork here, if I can get to it. In 1988, the city of Decatur did a quitclaim deed and deeded that property over to the Redmond's Lodge. And a lot of you millennials probably don't know of the Redmond, but us older folks, we all remember the Redmond Fair that used to be held in downtown Decatur, the street fair. Back when we used to really have a street fair, there was the Redmond Street Fair. And other than having a street fair, I don't know what the Redmond did, but they were a fraternal order, and Mayor Fred Ish deeded this property over to them, 413 Winchester Street, in October 17th, 1988. And they used it as a lodge for some time, and then I don't know when, but they pretty much left Decatur, and they went defunct, whatever. And through code enforcement, Bill's been down there, and we checked the county records and found out that there's been no property taxes paid on it, but yeah, we see cars sitting there and there's lights on, there's somebody living there, and you look on the county property tax records and it says Redmond's Lodge. And being a not-for-profit, they wouldn't pay taxes, but yet somebody's living there. So through our utility department, we knew who was living there, or who the utilities were in anyhow. And long story short, after better part of a day trying to figure out how to get a hold of the National Order of the Redmonds, I did that, and then they got me in touch with the regional district Grand Poopah, whatever he is, and he was like, hey, you know, he was in Tennessee, this regional person. And he says, that house, we do not want it. He said, this gentleman that we sold it to him on a land contract. In the first couple of years, he made a couple payments, but since then he hasn't paid us anything. He says, we've just kind of forgotten all about it. I said, well, okay, well, let's start remembering here now, and what can we do? So, long story short, the Redmonds gave me a letter and told me to go ahead and have the water shut off, since it's actually owned by them, and they're not collecting anything. So we've shut the water off. The gentleman living there is like a brother-in-law or something of the owner, and we've talked to the owner. The Redmonds have got a hold of Miller, Burry, and Brown, and they drafted up a letter that has been delivered to the owner. I might as well say the name, I guess. Vaughn Hart is the owner, or the person who was buying it on contract. Miller, Burry, and Brown also drafted an agreement to rescind their original contract, where it would go back to the Redmond, and that was delivered to Mr. Hart, and he had until yesterday to return this signed to the Miller, Burry, Herman offices. And I have not heard if that happened or not. I emailed Gary McElwain from the Redmonds, and to his knowledge, this was today, he had not heard from Miller Berry Brown whether it's been returned. If it wasn't returned, it says, "I will file suit in Adams Circuit Court requesting for a forfeiture of the contract and also requesting attorney fees pursuant to paragraph 26. That's what Miller Berry says. It's Adam Miller. So, one way or another, this house is going to get back in the Redmonds' name in time, and then they plan to then deed it over to the city, and then we would likely tear it down. And then Bill has plans for it, for the property. Since it's right along the trail, we got some ideas of what we might be able to, put a little pocket park there or something or other. So that's all down the road. But for now, it's just the process of getting that.
Someone's been living there without paying rent.
It's the utilities, the person living there, the utilities aren't in his name. It's in his, I think, daughter's name. And they have been paying the utilities locally. Now, Mr. Hart, when he took it out of his name and it was put into his niece's name or whatever she is, he still owes us $200 and some in delinquent fees. So I talked to Hart on the phone. He has every excuse imaginable. And how much of it I was to believe and how much I wasn't, I don't know. But anyhow, we're working on getting that property back into the name of the Redmonds, and then they can do what they want. They can fix it up or they can give it to us and we'll tear it down. That's that. And then at the last meeting, I think we also briefly talked about second floor City Hall. And we all just kind of tabled that motion not to do anything as of yet. As
Was
far
there anything back from
I met with Nate Roomslag.
Martin?
Well, yeah, we heard back from him. What
Well, we're waiting on you to give a report from Martin Riley.
I was waiting for you guys to tell me to go.
wait a minute.
Well, they were supposed to get us a report on the air conditioning, weren't they, and electrical?
Only if we hire them to do so. And last meeting, you guys
okay.
told me to table this.
All right.
I mean, for $4,500, they propose to provide us with plans and reconfigure the restrooms upstairs to become handicap accessible.
Good or bad?
Decatur personnel would make all finished materials and color selections. City would direct contractors as to the scope of the changes to the existing floor plans beyond the work of the restrooms described above. And then they would also include 6 hours of field engineering to assist us in directing contractors to modify the existing mechanical, electrical, and lighting systems. So that was what...
Yeah, I understand what that contract is, but shouldn't they catalog that that unit that they installed the first time is sufficient to use in the upstairs? When we paid for the rights for that unit, we should be able to know what that unit does without having to pay them to tell us what that unit does. Correct? Shouldn't that have been included in the first? I mean,
They're gonna tell us what that unit can do for what's upstairs. Right now, it's not really doing anything for upstairs.
right, isn't that what we want?
So basically, that's what they're gonna do, is take a look at the system and see what modifications have to be made.
Because the system is not made to do anything upstairs when it was put in.
I don't know,
I don't believe it was. I think the City Hall money decided not to do
The
it.
system is just for the downstairs.
If I remember right.
No one's separate from upstairs.
I met with Nate Roomslag and asked him if there's anything that because he was kind of the city's point of contact, general contractor, if you will, through Martin Riley, back when we did all this, and asked him if there's anything that we need to know, that we don't know. And Nate just basically told me that it's in one of Phyllis's storage areas, there's 2 or 3 books on everything that we did to this building, every contractor that did the work, every paint color, where the paint came from, what color of the carpet, where it came from, what it's called, you name it, from lighting, ceiling, tile, everything. It's in these 3 big manuals that I guess Nate created just for this kind of thing. And if we move on, if we want to use same colors, use same carpet, we have all that information. But otherwise, he said, no, there's nothing he asked about the heating and cooling, and I told him that Kurt is working with Felgerhart now, and he said that's a good company. He thought that was good. I told him about this contract with Martin Riley, and he thought that was a fair price and he says that he thought they would do us well, and that's about all he had to say. Yeah, Kurt.
Do you think maybe we should contact a couple other firms and get some quotes? Because as far as the HVAC upstairs, Felgerhart's pretty much on top of that. I think TJ from Felgerhart's would do us good if we decided we go somewhere else, somebody else design it.
Oh, I don't think this quote is to design a heating system, is it? Is it just for a layout? It's basically...
For the restrooms primarily.
It's basically a restroom layout and an upstairs layout. It has no design for heating in it.
Well,
That's part of that.
The 6 field hours.
You could use it for that, but
Right.
I guess my opinion is, I don't know where we got to start with this, but we should probably know how we're going to lay that thing out before they even come talk to us, or we sign a contract with them, so we're not wasting field hours, I guess would be my opinion.
And personally, I don't think we wanted to change layout too much, did we?
No, we wanted to keep it the way it was.
Because if we go moving walls around too much, then we got to get into state permits and everything.
Right.
Releases and everything else will start making.
I mean, but the only modification would be that one hallway that goes back to this back corner so that it's private and it can't be accessed, because that would be the city area, part of the building.
Curtis Felgerhart came down and put new Freon and
Not yet, they ordered parts.
would,
October, I think. When I got the approval from the board.
yeah, you wanted to wait till the season.
TJ, and he says it's 38 days to get the parts.
Well, wouldn't they know as a company that, if that unit that they're revamping would supply the upstairs?
We'll go ahead and look at it.
I
I mean,
would-
it's never been asked that question before. I'm sure he wants
That would be
to
smart.
know if it wasn't there.
I'd have those guys do that part. And I think part is the restrooms if we're going to change them
We
around.
have to do that, but
A lot of times you end up with two systems on different floors because it's hard to balance the airflow.
I'd rather have those guys check it out than
Yeah.
somebody else.
Exactly.
The other ones who fix their problem.
You could put a unit right next to that one to take care of your upstairs also.
Well, there's no urgency in any of this.
No, when you get with Felgerhart, when they start to come in here...
When they
for
come in to do that
their
work, then maybe have them,
recommendation,
and then we'll take this up again in a month or so.
I think the key on that one, Ken, is if we're going to change those bathrooms and try to tie the plumbing and the drainage and all that kind of stuff in together, I think that's what we're looking at for a design if we're going to do that right.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
Well, yeah, that has
we
nothing
want-
to do with the heating and air.
No.
Well, the 6 hours of consulting does.
Yeah, but I don't really want them dealing with it because they said they messed it up.
So if that's the case, you just ask them to take the 6 hours off.
Yeah, and I don't want to cast a bad shadow on Martin Riley. I think that overall this building is fantastic.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe there
Well,
was
the same heating and cooling portion is what he's had problems with.
Yeah, and I think they designed it, but then again, what was the company before Felgerhart? That,
there was multiple companies.
Yeah.
There was Carrier and a couple others that had to do with the gel or the oil that runs through the
Right.
coils. Carrier bought the gel from someone else, put it in their coils, and the oil was going bad, it was gel up, caused the system to freeze up. So it wasn't really the design from Martin Riley Mod, it was just product that was put in from other companies.
Okay, that's fair.
that's everything I have, and it's only 10 after 7. How about you, Tim? You got anything you want to throw in tonight? The Board of Works meeting?
Not the Board of Works. I have lots of stuff for the
I know we do,
council.
yep. Okay, if that's, I don't know of anything else. I could go through the second floor on there and the thing about the Logan Brothers building. I think that Thursday, the redevelopment meeting, or is it tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow redevelopment meets, and Tim and I are going to run the possibility of redevelopment buying that building for us, so. Because like I said, I think the building would appraise for more than or for less than what Logan's are going to let it go for. I've got them from 39 down to 35 and then down to 30, and that's where we're at right now. Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, I think you're going to have probably close to $30,000 in that, but kind of get all the bathrooms you need in there.
30,000 additional dollars? Yeah, that's what I guess we had you.
$40,000 by the time it's all set back.
But once we own it, then we can, yeah.
It's going to be pushing those numbers.
An additional 30 to 40. Goodness gracious. Okay.
One thing I can report, the refunding of the 2007 water bond issue was completed on Thursday of last week, so that's good because it saved a pretty significant sum of money on the life of that bond. Our interest rate went from 4.5% down to 2.25%, so it was definitely worth doing.
Yes, sir.
Cut in half.
Yeah, a little upfront money, but savings in the end.
You got more study to do on that?
With the water liability, I've got it.
No, with
Property owner?
the property owner, renters, the debt.
Yeah,
that's what
it's
I'm talking
utilities.
about.
We're going to talk about that at the council
Yeah,
meeting.
I've got, did you get copies
right
here?
here.
Okay. I drafted something, but I want to discuss it. I don't necessarily want it introduced tonight because we may...
Yeah, let me just touch on that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Or you guys may want to go a different way.
I gotta find out from him what he needs
This
first.
is set up that you still allow renters to put it in their name, but it clearly states that it's the responsibility of the property owner.
Is this a Board of Works function or a council function?
It's really, I mean, it's a blend. It's more a council matter because it's going to have to be done by ordinance, but Board of Works definitely is involved because it involves water rates and other utilities. And I can...
The write-offs, okay, what we're talking about up here is
Give that to her.
rental properties, and each year how we have to do the write-offs for delinquent accounts.
So here's what I did in this. Kevin...
Now, we're going to talk about this at the council meeting too,
Right.
so we're just kind of...
But this will
Let
speed
everybody know
things up a
what-
little bit, yeah. Basically, talk to Kevin, talk to the mayor. Right now, we do allow renters or occupants of properties to transfer, for billing purposes, services into the occupant's name as opposed to the owner. However, there's nothing specific in our ordinance that says that the primary responsibility is still the owner's if that transfer takes place. So the change that this ordinance does is first make that very clear that it is the primary responsibility of the owner regardless of whether the service is billed to an occupant. The second thing it does is, if you think about this, initially we were talking about just water rate, okay, or water bills. But if you look at our utility bill, it's actually a combination of 5 different things. It's fire protection, it's sanitation services, it's stormwater services, it's sewage services, and it's water services. So then the issue becomes, can we shut off water and refuse to turn it on until the utility bill's paid, because we're not talking about just the water bill now, we're talking about all these other services. So that's a question that I have that I'm posing to AIM, because I'm curious whether we even have the legal authority to do that. It may be that we could require the water bill portion to be paid in full, and then we're obligated to turn the water on. I'm not sure. But the only 2 services that we really can discontinue are water and sanitation. You can't cut off stormwater, you can't cut off sewer, you can't cut off fire protection. If you do fire protection, I mean, conceivably you could, but you're probably exposing yourself to liability if you do. So I would not recommend that. So what I tried to do is in chapter 50 of the code, that's just kind of an overall view of public works. So in that, I added two sections, section 38, section 39. The first goes to the issue of billing, and we clearly defined that the utility bill, as we call it, is a combination of all these services that we're billing on a combined statement. The second thing, it continues to allow that bill for billing purposes to be put in the name of an occupant with the consent of the owner. But what we do is we make very clear that if that happens, it does not in any way relieve the property owner from primary responsibility to pay that bill. Okay? And in addition, we're trying to make clear that the liability follows the property. So if it gets transferred and it's not been paid, then the new owner could potentially be responsible for it. Again, I have some questions about how enforceable that is, because typically what happens is when somebody enters into a contract to buy property, they do a search of the records in the county records to determine whether there are liens outstanding on the property. This doesn't necessarily show up as a lien, and it can't be in terms of water. We can put a lien on property for sewer, but we can't on water, and we can't on these other services. So we can't enforce a lien, and we can't file that with the county so that if a title insurance search is done, it would show up and it would have to be paid. You know, I know Tyler ran into this over in Ohio, but Ohio's laws are different.
But, I mean, in turn, you can't, say you can't enforce it as part of a lien, but you can enforce it by not turning on the water.
Well, I'm saying we are taking the position in this that we are not going to turn the water on until delinquent utility bills are paid, okay? What I'm saying, though, is I'm not sure we can enforce that, and I want to find that out, because there's no sense saying that's what we're going to do if we can't, if it isn't going to survive. The second thing is that under Section 39, then I talk about the remedies if those bills aren't paid. The first is that, you know, if a utility bill remains unpaid for more than 45 days from the due date, and I asked Kevin to verify if this is consistent with our policy, we'd serve a shut-off notice. But that notice, if we're going to hold the owner responsible, the notice needs to go to the owner, not to the occupant. And so what I said is that notice would be sent to the owner's mailing address shown on the property tax card in the county offices, okay? And then we would give them, that owner, 10 days to pay that bill. And if the bill isn't paid at that point, then we will shut the water off, okay? The issue is, can we keep the water off if the owner comes to us and says, I want to pay that portion of the bill that's related to water service? You know, can we say, no, we're not going to accept partial payment, we require all of the bill to be paid? You know, so we're kind of piggybacking off of the shut-off of water by saying we want all these other invoices that are combined on that utility bill to be paid as well. That's what I'm not sure that we have the ability to do. The second thing it does is it says that we're not going to restore the service until the utility bill is paid, assuming we can do that. And lastly, it says that if somebody, if this remedy is in addition to any other remedies that are set out more specifically in the chapters that involve stormwater, sewer, and water. So we're not limiting our remedy. This is just one that we can exercise that we're adding to our quiver of arrows, if you want to think of it that way. Then, if you go on to Chapter 53, that deals specifically with water. And so now in that, I've changed the language of 53.072 to basically say what is consistent with what we're adding in Chapter 50. And that is that the owner of the property is the primary responsible party for the utility bill, and if a tenant or conditional sales contract purchaser puts it in that person's name, they can do so, but the city's not a part to the lease or the contract, so we're not bound by that, and we're holding the owner responsible. Okay? And then it says that if the owner doesn't pay the services that are shown on the utility bill, we have the right to exercise the remedies that we spelled out in Section 5039. And in addition, if the occupant has transferred service into the occupant's name for property A, and then leaves property A, leaving a bill unpaid, but goes to property B and says, now I want service here, we say, no, we're not going to give you service here until you've paid for the service that you incurred here. Okay? So that's the intent of this language. The effective date, and again, I want Kevin to weigh in on this, but it's a little bit confusing because what we do is we read meters and then we start billing as of the first of the following month. So it's billing in arrears. And I don't know if that's the case with regard to the other services that are on that bill. Are all services billed in arrears? So sanitation services are billed for the prior month. Okay. So I could put language in there that says that, the combined utility bill is based upon billing for the service in the prior billing cycle or whatever. So I don't know if you want that changed in any way or not.
So now, well, go ahead, Kevin.
Since they're all billed after the fact, I don't think that would need to be in there to make that clear.
Yeah. So I tried to, and as long as you're comfortable that that's the way it is, then we can leave it that way. The issue that I wasn't certain, because discussion has been back and forth, are you requiring that it has to be in the owner's name only, or do you want to leave it as we have historically allowed, but follow this language to the extent that we can? And that was something, and I told Ken that what I really would like to do is just get your input tonight. If you want to go a different direction and just say flat out it can't be in anybody's name other than the owner.
I think the way you have it written is appropriate. If I own rental properties, I would want my tenants to be able to pay their own bill.
Okay.
Even if it's ultimately my...
And I did put in here, I did put in somewhere, and I don't remember where I put it, but it's the responsibility of the owner to verify that the bills are being timely paid. It's not our responsibility.
Correct. And once they get that notice, I think it's going to get their attention quickly.
And tonight,
as the owner.
Tonight, we want to bring this up at the council meeting, just to bring it up, have it as a public record, hoping to get a little article in the paper possibly about this, to kind of allow property owners to understand that we are looking at making some changes. We're not going to introduce this tonight. At least I don't want to introduce it tonight. I want everybody to think on it. I've emailed a copy to Dan Rickard. Dan stopped in the other day when Kevin and Tim and I were talking. And it's real easy, Dan, with his years of experience at this, for him to look at the situation and say, well, what if this happens? What are you going to do? So Dan can kind of play devil's advocate in this. And so let's give Dan the opportunity to review it. Kevin literally just got this when he got here this evening.
Yeah.
And I also want to have the two girls that work out front, who are the ones that work on this day in and day out, I want them to have a chance to review this. Yeah. So, and you did call Belmont Estates manager today.
Yeah. And she said that Angola, it's not Section 8 housing, but income-based housing. All utilities are in, it's not Belmont Estates, but the managing company's name. They pay all utilities. There's a property in Michigan that it's split where they pay water, sewer, storm, fire protection, trash, and the tenants pay their electric and gas.
which is probably,
Which would what would be here for
Yeah.
that area.
but, she,
But, and then also, the way their income-based rent is, the way it's based is on the tenants having the utilities in their name, so they would have to reapply through HUD to make sure that they can still operate the same way.
so that might take a little time.
It may take some time. She didn't really know for sure, but she said
Right.
there would be notice, there'd be advance notice.
And what we would have to do, if that's the case, if in fact it has to be approved by some regulatory agency, then with regard to any of that type of housing, we would have to make it subject to that approval before it goes into effect.
My question is, Kevin, when you presented this to the Board of Works on these bills to be written off, were they just utilities? Were they just water? Or was this the
That's
whole?
everything.
Was it?
That's everything.
Okay.
Yeah, so, you know, and what's happened in the past, we're probably not going to be able to do much about.
Going forward.
But this is, from here on out, then we're trying to make it very clear that this will be enforced against the owner. And they need to be aware of that before they allow a utility to be transferred into the name of an occupant, because they're the ones that are at risk, all of them.
And council members, if you've ever gotten calls from the general public, this is one thing I'm sure we're all going to get calls on from property owners. So,
The bulk of the bills
we'll be
are
well-versed in it.
water though, right, Kevin?
No,
Tyler?
that's the smaller.
I don't expect to pay more on my bill.
Oh, really?
Making
Wow.
money on their rent. It's just, it's simple math.
Mhm.
I don't need to pay more for my water bill because you're making more money on your rent because your guy's not paying their water bill.
Right.
So, I mean, they can argue, but it's just simple math. I'm not
Mhm.
going to pay more, or I don't feel that all the citizens in my district that are paying their water bill
Right.
need to pay more money
On
because...
top of that, because somebody else
Pick up
isn't.
the slack. Yes.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you get more money.
We've done it long enough.
Yep. So,
You can be mad. I guess that's what it is.
Right. So,
Tim's worked a lot of hours on this week. It may not look that difficult to you all, but he's put in a lot of hours on it.
So
by next week, we might have this ready to
By
go
next-
to be addressed.
Here's what I'm wanting, okay, if we can kind of talk about this tonight, let the public find out about it. 2 weeks from tonight, we would introduce this ordinance on 2 readings, table it and come back 3 weeks later, because this is a 5 Tuesday month, and pass it.
November, have a public hearing and pass it.
We wouldn't, would we need a public hearing? We wouldn't, would we?
You're not changing the rates.
I wouldn't think so.
I don't think you're required to have a public hearing. You're going to have 2 public meetings at which anybody that wants can come and express their concerns.
So, okay, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
so moved. Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same, we're adjourned, we'll